Well, thank you so much for the invitation to speak and join this discussion. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I had significant train trouble, so I'm doing this from our office. I'm speaking on behalf of a huge team of people when I talk about this project and many other designers for whom Dundee, both place and people, is very much the springboard. And as a practitioner, I think this is, we're trying to give you a glimpse of what a bit of live design thinking. This amazing project has a really strong narrative. The storytelling around environmental and regenerative practice is there for us to pick up on. And it's got a strong steering by a joint group at the council, the Northwood Trust and the University of Dundee. I mean, all the sort of logos on the screen right now that you see alongside the image are just, the tip of the number of partnerships that are being formed and communities that are being engaged with. So just a bit of background on Eden. Eden Project is an educational charity, and they have a vision, a very clear vision to create a future that we all want to live in, and it explores the interconnectedness of all life on Earth, and also to inspire positive action for the planet. So no small task. And they started their engagement in the project back in 2020 during the lockdowns by meeting over 200 organisations and community groups in the city, and with a sense of anticipation of partnering with community group led initiatives, Grow Dundee, all sorts of community forums, and organisations, a whole host of them, who have arts and design credentials, who work in urban wellness and social prescribing, climate change education. So it's really about working with and for everyone across the city. I think one thing that's been particularly powerful that we've seen is somebody who'd be a brilliant speaker in the past, or in the future for you, is Keishton Sweeney, who's a project engagement manager and has worked across community groups in the city for many years, and is really sort of the strength of the project in the city. For any designer, being given a brief which starts with a charter is an enviable position, if slightly intimidating. And this charter from Eden has the twin purpose of guiding both design decisions from the team for the built and the grown scheme, but also has the twin purpose of guiding how people can have ownership of the project, the social narrative, the social and economic regeneration. And so it sets out a set of principles which guide and shape the interactions between Eden and the place. I think the narrative really is embedded in this idea which the creative team at Eden have come up with, which is that we are living at a moment which has, we look back to a deep past. We have an anomaly of crisis at the moment, but they have a hope that there is also a long future. So the story that they're telling people who come to visit this scheme really is one of the parallel track of human history and natural history, of how we have depleted the Earth's resources, and how we could become more aligned over time, looking forwards, if we reflect on how we behave, and behave differently going forwards, invent new stories, new futures of a sort of circular, much more circular nature. So this is the sort of the crux of what they want to do. They want to turn people's minds around, really, so that they can think differently about how they work and are with nature. It's obviously in a context where there has been and remains a lot of need, social need, and huge sort of grappling with economic pressures, changes after in a thriving industrial past. this is the spot where Eden will be located as a sort of a hub, but really it's about having a whole set of places throughout the city. It's the first time Eden are thinking about being in an urban setting. And I think there's a real sense of wanting to engage with the citizens of Dundee and coming a strong sense of ownership. And for that, there has been a reinvention of the 9 trades of Dundee to a set of sort of future-looking guilds. And they're people-based organisations, and it means that there can be a strong sense of engagement. And they're sort of seeds from which new regenerative ideas and actions could grow. So, so they are underpinned really by the perspectives and skills needed for the future. And they've just, everyone engages with them so wholeheartedly at the consultation events throughout the city, which are ongoing. And I think, you know, there's a long run up to a project being built. And the idea is that that these become live organizations with bases in the city, which can start to capture the energy and hope for, you know, working differently. So in a way, when the door opens on Eden, all of this will already be in place. And so you're invited really to think which of the guilds that you'd be part of, which would you engage with. As the architects, we're a little bit of everything. We like to think we're a little bit of everything always, of course. And to really step into sort of a slightly, in a way, it's a way of writing a play or stepping into a different persona, a sort of a place of imagination, which then can become real. So it's strong on storytelling. And these are both physical and virtual, so they'll be rooted in place, enable activities, and also there'll be a digital overlay. There could be a whole talk done on just the Meal Mile projects, and I really recommend that Caitlin holds all of these, and she'd be a fantastic way of seeing how sort of bottom-up approach is real in Dundee at the moment. And this is literally a tiny snapshot of the huge numbers of students and local organisations that have been engaged with, as well as sort of larger, more formal organisations. And if you've been to Dundee, then you might have noticed the Wildflower Project, where there's a 3-year funded project, which is starting to make visible small pockets of transformation in the city. So and that's just, I'm not doing the work that Eden do justice by just highlighting that to you, but I wanted to emphasize that this is a twin project between visitors coming to the city and a sort of economic regeneration and education which comes with that, but also really rooted in all the endeavours which happen in the city as well. So it is city regeneration. The site is towards the east, and it's on a loop of a string of pearls, if you like, of other places within the city which exist at the moment and which are to come, and all the regeneration which has already started. So it's looking into a wider picture. But I suppose at the heart of it, it is looking to transform one place quite radically, which was a former gasworks, and then spill out into the city along sort of green pathways, connecting back into the multiple number of green places which already exist in the city, referencing topography, and possibly even resulting in a fleet of boats which could go around the UK and beyond, sort of educating as they go. So there's a big vision of it being interconnected and highly networked. Of course, anything which claims to be regenerative and this vocabulary which can be used a bit too loosely sometimes, and we sort of measure how much we use it really, but is that it must be based locally. And so there's a whole mapping exercise of which this is just a glimpse, looking at the opportunities to grow and make and build out of what is close to Dundee. So not only so that culturally it's of a place, but also that it's building up a resource locally for future projects and patterns of making and building. The site is was actually half land and half water. It was a site of the River Tay. And so it's partly made ground, and it was made in order to, as part of the whole Dockland development, and it was made to bring energy and gas into the city and in fact the wider region, and it remains a key sort of entry point for that. So it is a symbol of a fossil fuel era when we dug carbon out of the ground and dumped it into the atmosphere. And when you design on this site, it's an act of redevelopment and restoration, and it has to increase biodiversity. It has to completely transform it over the lifetime of the scheme. And in a way, it's a sort of repaying of the debt we owe to the Earth's climate. So it's ambitious, and I think we just want to remember that you know, we have a real sense of responsibility to using what's there. You'll see, and working with the site as it is at the moment. So we've got this amazing sense of a water line on a blue-green site, which runs through the centre of the scheme. The remnants of the industrial past. This is the final built form on the site, and it can be seen from space apparently. So it's got a different sort of level of significance. It's outscaled, despite the fact that this used to be sometimes 4 times the height at the moment, held up by gas. It's outscaled by the oil rigs that come into the city to be refurbished. And we have a sense, so this will clarify, of the systems thinking that we need. It's just hard work as designers. I think it's easy to fall into sort of the lazy traps of, you know, specifying things, choosing things, and having them in a perfect condition, to making sure we go back to a sort of fairly raw set of systems thinking. Firstly, about the site. It was in balance. It then became depleted, and this was the scale of the operation, which went on for 150 years. And to a place where it can restore and thrive well beyond this. This is the site as a piece of archaeology, industrial archaeology. This is the layers of occupation of the site. It's an amazing drawing we come back to again and again. And I think it's a reminder to us that the circular economy that we're looking to create above ground also exists below the ground. And you know, 20% of embodied carbon, which normally goes into the building, is below the ground in foundations. And how are we going to not fall into that trap with a further 20% sort of going in above ground? So this overlay of systems of the past, we're sort of reinvesting the systems of the site now coming forward. So we're working with Gross Max, the landscape architects, and we're tracing, the scheme traces the old water line through the site. The scheme as a gathering space, the main entrance threshold with the city along Foundry Lane. This is where you arrive and land. There are routes down through that threshold, a new bridge by Nicol Russell architects, who are working in the way that the whole scheme knits into the city. So it's an integrated piece across the site. Multiple different characters of landscape, and really, and in a way, I always think we should be talking closely with the other design disciplines, because it's not just architecture, it is a whole set of systems which exist. But just to help orientate yourself, an entrance point here for a building called the Valve, which is it's outside the pay barrier. So it is a new room, a new space for the city, with a new sense of arrival. A reworking and reinvention, recycling of the gas holder at a scale. And a new piece which relies on this upper platform on the site as it is at the moment, a new piece built from waste, a picture of reuse and recycling. I suppose beneath all of this is this sense, I always think this looks a bit like a music score along the bottom, but we're trying to instill in us a discipline of working with systems which go through the buildings. And identify each of those systems and see how they can be established. Of course, the soil, there is no real soil there, which is rich, so it's going to have to be rebuilt, and habitats will be established. We're always, of course, our drawings show something which is sort of 15 years on, but it's basically presenting a picture of where it's all going. Energy cycles and material use. So this is a casting forwards. It's a picture of how it can develop. And Grossmax talk about this green machine, because really the foundation of the whole thing is their landscape and the waterscape which they develop. And this is more than recreational, it's useful. So if there's sudden rainfall, it's an absorber so that this whole site doesn't flood. And it can also be used for play and recreation. So there's a whole layer of different character types of landscape, but one integrated system in which the buildings sort of work. So each building captures rainfall and sun to power and to create energy. So it's a very much a sort of circular system. And there's a gift on the site really, which is a huge stone retaining wall which faces south. And that is they've termed a great living wall, which will have a whole multiple sort of variety of environments which can stretch along it, habitats that will be formed, pockets of productivity and seasonal planting, and all sorts of things like that. I mean, all of this is quite propositional. We have planning, so it's real, but it's also, there are lots of questions to still ask. We don't have all the answers yet, and we're still looking for the best possible solutions to take these industrial remnants and grow them to be a place which is both for visitors to come to, so and learn and be thinking through, but also for people in Dundee to come and use for all their in the communities. So, I mean, I think Eden Cornwall has over 600 partnerships with communities. It has apprenticeship schemes, a vast range of educational learning programs at all stages, and over 50,000 school children visit the Cornwall setup every year. So it's really got the door is open very wide. So just take you through very quickly the three buildings. They have an agenda to demonstrate a regenerative process. So this is the point of orientation and amenity here at the site. It's tasked with demonstrating natural and local use. So we're tapping into bio-based cycles. And it has at its entrance an extensive green structure, which is made of, we're hoping, old telegraph poles. It's a marker, a canopy for the city, and a civic scale sort of venture. I think every time we think about materials we're using, we're trying to draw them and describe them in a cyclical way. Which part of the cycle are we getting materials from? And what proportion of each building are we, which stage of the cycle do they come from, and where will they go? Could you pick this building up and put it somewhere else in the future? And I think we've got to a level of detail where we're thinking how this is made, and this is just a glimpse really. We're working with expedition engineers structurally. And I think one of the challenges is this issue of transforming how we think about how we support buildings underground. Expedition have come up with these conical structures, which vastly reduce the amount of cement in them, and they also occupy a very shallow part of the site. So when there's it's remediated ground, we really want the whole scheme to kind of float across it rather than digging down and making complicated junctions. And there are these pointers towards solutions here. I'll keep going because I know I haven't got much time. Then at large scale, we're reusing the gas holder. And the way we're forming the structure of this lush bunker, it's two worlds. When you go into it as a visitor, it has a dark scene at the lower levels and a living forest at the top levels. So you're invited to take a journey through deep time, talks about the formation of the earth and the laying down of the coal seam to witness human extraction, and then emerging into a planted world of abundance. So this is what it will look like inside, we think. And I mean, this is sort of 40 mil thick steel. And so we're obviously going to try and use this and reuse the foundations that it's on. The whole structure actually of these are very lean because it was held up by the gas. And we need to find a new support mechanism. And that support mechanism is going to follow the same structural paths as the existing gas holder. So to try and make it lean in terms of its use of materials. So, I mean, this is a picture really of immersive experience to uncover the storytelling, which is from below this dark scene that you can go to up into the living forest beyond. And there's been really careful consideration of how you make this a comfortable environment for the plants rather than the people. And in a way, working back from the environment we can produce with passive means and the planting which would suit that. So this is deliberately not tropical. It's meant to be native species, but a sort of thriving environment. So below ground, this dark seam, and above this living forest. And then the final space is has an agenda for demonstrating how you could build and reuse waste. So really harvesting, or urban mining, I think they call it, from the city. And we have had discussions with Dundee City Council about tapping into the planning system so that you can maybe pick up materials which are from demolished buildings and reuse them in the city. The building recalls the rich history of Victorian greenhouses and other agricultural forms, which are highly functional and beautifully engineered. And this has the opportunity to face south so that you're really harvesting the resources and the environmental forces that you have. So there's a huge exhibition space where people will be able to reflect on what they've learned and think about the new stories that we need to have to underpin a different way of thinking and behaving. So here you can see the echo of the Victorian glass houses, but they're not glass, they're here. And it's repurposed steel frame, which extends down into the landscape, forming a sheltered space for visitors to sit.
Rachel, if you could wrap up quickly.
Yeah. So looking to capture materials into different frames. I think I'll leave it there really, but it is obviously a project which is full of hope, but there's also still a long way to go. And I'm hoping it's a story we can sort of share regularly as along the journey, really, to see what we discover and the solutions that we come across. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Hope I put this at the right height for me. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Glo. That was great. I'm definitely going to be talking about health and well-being in buildings. So I'm going to change the narrative from energy to community. So, as Gloria mentioned, I've been a researcher at Miru for the last 11 years. It's almost actually coming up 12 years, doing building performance evaluation, going to people's social homes and just finding out how they use their homes, not just for energy, but how they feel comfortable in the homes. And working with these people over this time, all of these households, I've observed that many individuals struggle to adapt to our built environment. And to me, that highlights a lack of resilience in our society. So earlier this year, I co-curated an exhibition which showcased 30 years of Miru's research. And Miru's research focuses on all aspects of environmental architecture. And while I was reviewing the archives at the Glasgow School of Art, I was struck by the materials that were there from the early 1980s, where people were campaigning against fuel poverty. And that led to Miru's first project, which was monitoring a passive solar retrofit in 36 thermally substandard homes in East Hall, Glasgow, which was led by our founder, Colin Porteous, in collaboration with Heatwise and the East Hall Residents Association. One notable figure from this community is Kathy McCormack. Kathy fought for better living conditions against the backdrop of the mouldy conditions of her local authority home, which was unaffordable to heat. Her activism was driven by the reality and impact the mouldy living conditions had on her family's health and arguably the education of her children. She described her struggle as a war without bullets. And the tools of the oppression were briefcases and victim blaming. But most families in this development were in the same boat. She recognised that these struggles and the health inequalities mostly affected people at the bottom of the socio-economic hierarchy. And after her home was retrofitted, she continued to campaign for social justice on a world stage. Kathy passed away just aged 70 due to the poor health conditions that related to a long-term respiratory illness. And her story is detailed in her book, The Wee Yellow Butterfly. Even though Kathy's struggle dates back 40 years, mould in home remains a crisis today. Nearly a third of the UK population reports its presence. And we're waking up to the increasing health impacts linked to ultra-processed lifestyles. Urgent action to tackle all these issues is needed. So when I was invited to speak at this conference, I'd just begun reading Ultra-Processed People by Chris Van Targen. The parallels between our food system and modern building materials struck me. Talking about our chemical food system, Van Targen notes that these substances enter the diet gradually, but the incursion gained pace from the 1950s onwards. They now constitute the majority of what people eat in the UK. He highlights a new ecosystem fueled by money, where we are the prey, the source of the money that powers the system. And competition for that money occurs between an entire ecosystem of constantly evolving corporations. This includes deceptive marketing, bogus court cases, secret lobbying, all vital for corporations to extract that money. This is mirrored in our buildings and the processes that take place inside them. And Sue has mentioned that earlier today. So many of you here are familiar with volatile organic compounds in building materials. However, beyond the structure itself, there are many ways that indoor air quality is impacted. Contaminants include emissions from our furnishings, cleaning products, and also our personal care products. We can see from this image that it stands to reason that the health of building occupants is compromised by exposure to a wide range of airborne contaminants. In a home, many people use a variety of cleaning, laundry and disinfectant products, which often contain synthetic chemicals, fragrances and preservatives. Items like air fresheners, scented candles and fabric sprays, they mask odours, but in doing so, they release volatile organic compounds, formaldehyde and phthalates into the air, leading to health risks that include respiratory issues, headaches and hormone disruption. The incursion continues with personal care products, shampoos, lotions, soaps, deodorants, makeup, and even toilet paper. Most all contain synthetic chemicals. These include sulfates, preservatives, and fragrances. Diethyl phthalate, for instance, is included to make fragrance linger longer. Ingredients in soap and shampoos can strip the natural oils from the skin, and personal care products mimic estrogen and cause allergic reactions. Additionally, some preservatives are formaldehyde-based, which are irritants and potential carcinogens. But fragrances can trigger allergic reactions in people, not only in a home, but also in public spaces, affecting those who pass nearby and who are unlucky enough to be in the wake of someone wearing a fragrance. Being a soap maker, as well as a researcher, and having gone through the cosmetic safety assessment process, I'm well aware, as Kate Grenville, an author, found that there is no legal requirement to disclose what is in a fragrance. So fragrance has been called the new second-hand smoke, and it puts your own and the health of others at risk. Fragrance can cause others to feel unwell, sensitizing them to particular chemicals. Sorry, this is a personal journey. And this is a condition that occurs more often in women. Alternative products are marketed as having no synthetic chemicals and a fragrance with essential oil. Essential oils are highly concentrated, and they too contain harmful allergens that can negatively impact sensitized individuals. In fact, allergens from these naturally occurring oils need to be disclosed on product labels. To build a resilient and equitable society, we must challenge the status quo and move into a society where all members are healthy. There is no justification for advocating resilience and adaptation if it merely perpetuates the current state of affairs. We're all aware of food allergies, and we make allowances for people with peanut allergies without question. We do not consume nuts in public spaces or areas that have nut-free policies. 2.5% of children of the population have a peanut allergy, but it might surprise you to learn that 8% of deaths are attributed to chemicals. Now that's something that Howard Liddell would talk about on the SEDA stage and beyond for many years. And the importance of that is that 16% of the UK population report a chemical sensitivity. 27% of the population report a fragrance sensitivity. And to put that into context, 29% of the UK population have mould in their homes. So why are measures for mould reduction only just coming into force after people have had their lives impacted by mould? And why do we not hear about chemical and fragrance sensitivity? People in our buildings are sick, but the range of symptoms make it difficult to pinpoint the exact cause. In the 1980s, this was called sick building syndrome, and the research centred on workplace. With the ever-increasing use of chemical products in construction, clothing, cleaning, personal care, cooking, food, and even our water, it's no wonder why many people are sensitive to the indoor environments in their ultra-processed buildings. There is a wide range of health problems that include dizziness, shortness of breath, dermatitis, sneezing, brain fog, and joint pain. These health issues can have a disabling impact on people and their quality of life. The impacts can be so severe that they can lead to a lack of access to public spaces and buildings, sick days from work or school, loss of jobs, impacted education, decreased social circles, complete social isolation, and death. Someone with a fragrance sensitivity would not be able to be in this room with us today. Our chemical lifestyle is ingrained in our culture. It is shaped by market forces, those very corporations that Chris Van Tulleken linked with our food system. In fact, our culture has created a way of life that has resulted in a health problem. The way the medical industry treats people's symptoms is with a prescription for chemical medication, not prevention. And so the war without bullets continues for people in our society who are unwell but trying to live a normal life. 35 years ago, the Rose Law Guide emphasised the need for specifiers to first eliminate and reduce emissions before ventilation. Now, some people are designing great buildings that are constructed from low and zero VOC materials. Unfortunately, these types of buildings are in the minority. Many buildings today are constructed from materials that off-gas a cocktail of harmful chemicals, and even in low-emitting buildings, other hazards contribute to that cocktail. We can advocate for healthier buildings that are constructed from safe natural materials and use low-emission paints and adhesives. However, regulation is required to reduce the chemical content in construction materials. This can follow or improve on the VOC emission schemes for construction materials that already exist in Belgium, France, Germany, and Italy. Regulation associated with a chemical load from our clothing, cleaning, and personal care products needs to be introduced, as well as fragrance-free policies in work and public spaces. While this might sound radical, Canada has a fragrance-free workplace policy, and other countries recognise health issues associated with chemical and fragrance sensitivities. Now, while ventilation is a crucial part of the solution, it is unfortunate that the industry often thinks ventilation alone will solve indoor air quality problems. This is not the case. While the industry debates which is better for homes, mechanical or natural ventilation, it should be remembered that mechanical ventilation in our homes should complement, not replace, a well-designed natural ventilation system. Education and awareness are crucial, not just in classrooms, but across the entire construction industry. And for clients and healthcare providers, fragrance-free policies can be written into projects such as for new schools, hospitals, shops, and other public spaces that we might be working on. Enforced policies will start momentum for change. Rather like when the smoking ban to resist smoking in work and public spaces came into force, there was scepticism that it would work. But since this came into force, there has been a trickle effect, with more smokers now choosing to smoke outside of their homes. Another example is the industry uptake of the European Paints Directive, which was designed to reduce VOC from paints. This was implemented without disruption to the marketplace. Yes, we still have plastic paints, and yes, there was a long lead-in time, but there's wide-scale adoption of low VOC paints, which is a step in the right direction for lowering the VOC content in buildings. Ultra-processed buildings have many impacts. The struggles of people with chemical and fragrance sensitivity are not trivial. Yet they are often disbelieved and marginalised when they raise awareness of their condition. The various industries have known for more than 40 years that what we build our buildings from and the stuff we fill them with can seriously affect people's health. But this knowledge is not widespread among the general population, and so we are unknowingly exposed to a barrage of chemicals every day. If we do not know about it, we cannot be expected to be resilient to it. We can't blame society for getting sick when it doesn't have a choice about its living conditions and when there is regulatory silence. By advocating for a reduction of chemicals in all aspects of our buildings and for fragrance-free policies for public buildings, design professionals can normalise the needs of a large sector of society. Now, my last slide, I will just put up and I will not read. Thank you.
After the collapse of the World Trade Centers due to the terrorist attacks in New York in 2001, there was a rapid and incremental increase of carcinogens and VOCs in the air due to MDF and the furniture burning in the building, the furnishings. Everything that was in the building that was caught on fire caused massive problems to health, to air quality, and to some extent, nothing's changed. So thank you for raising that. As I said, this is going to be a very difficult act to follow. My name's Arno Verhoeven. Thank you, GLOW and SEDA for having me. I'm not an architect and I'm not an engineer. I'm an idiot. And I say that in the most important way. I'm an idiot because, like Mike Michaels, the sociologist from Sussex, I stand outside of society, and when people look at me, they don't understand what I'm doing. They don't understand why I'm doing it. They just look and scratch their head and go, what an idiot. But the point is that I'm doing it on purpose to say that actually we need some of this divergent thinking. We need some of this disruption. We need more people to stand outside and do crazy things. We should be celebrating idiots. We need more idiots in the world. I'm the Director of Sustainable Development for the Edinburgh College of Art at the University of Edinburgh. I'm the Director of Edinburgh's Conscious Energy Research Team. And today I'm going to talk a bit about solar, and I'm here representing my peeps and my crew from SEDA Solar. So shout out to Fua. Colin has already been mentioned by Janice, and some of his fantastic work, Philbert and Joseph. If you're out in the audience, this is for you. I want to talk a bit about day two. This is about community-based solutions. That's what I understood today was about. But for me, there's two words that are really interesting in there. One is solutions. I'm going to confess that I don't have a single answer to anything. But that is because I don't really understand the problem. And I don't think it's about understanding the problem, because the problem is a social convention. We agree that problem. Design, whether you're an architect, an industrial designer, an engineer, we're really bad at solving problems. And I really wish we would stop trying to pretend that we can solve problems, because we're here today because clearly our predecessors were not very good at solving problems. They were really good at making them for us. So we should embrace this to say something different. The other one is about community, and I want to talk a bit about that. But before I do, some shout outs to the group. SEDA Solar is looking for members. Yay, come join us. We're a small group and we're really doing interesting stuff. It's been really great to work with these guys because I am not from their fold, and they've been really welcoming and very curious about my perspective. Curious to the extent that they let me come up here and talk on their behalf, which they may regret. But if you would like to join Solar SEDA, come. We've got lots of room. We're very welcoming, and we do lots of interesting stuff. Like we're taking a field trip over to Harriet Watt to visit people, to look at the technical solar farm and we're going to go and be geeks and look at how all these things work and why they work and how they, we're going to meet those two guys maybe, I don't know, but hopefully we get to see those panels in action. And there'll be stuff released soon, Pua, is that correct, on Eventbrite through our website? Cool. And then the third bit. Oh, there it is. We host the Kerr McGregor Award, which is for solar innovation, which is great because it's not just about engineers, it's not just about architecture, it's about solar innovation, invention, disruption in the widest sense. So if you've got a thought, if you've got an idea, if you've got something that you've brought a design proposal to fruition, check out the SEDA Solar blog. Self-nominations are possible. There we go. We're looking forward to sponsoring that. But without further ado, I realize that you all probably want to have a pee break because we're way over time and I'm going to go as fast as I can. I'm here to talk about design and I'm here to talk about community, which is what I thought we would talk about. But I want to do it through solar, not necessarily about solar, but through solar. First and foremost, I want to give a definition of design so you understand what I mean by design, which is not necessarily what everybody means. Everybody here is familiar with Christopher Alexander? Yeah. Arguably the first PhD, 1964, synthesis of form. If you're an architect and you haven't read that book, if you're a designer and you haven't read that book, you need to pick it up. This quote from Bruce Archer, arguably the first product industrial design PhD, 1968. Archer was the director of design research at the Royal College of Art at the time, up until the 70s, really influential in product and industrial design. Design is not what you do or not what you did, it's what you're doing. It's really convenient to say that this is my design as if it was a thing, but it's a process. As Sue has already said, it's not the finished result. That's just the thing. The design is in the decisions that you make that lead to that. So I want to be talking about that process of decision-making, critical reflection. But then I also want to talk a bit about Herb Simon. It's about courses of action. It's about the actions that we take. And it's also the actions that we don't take. It's the sequences of things that happen, which result in wicked problems being addressed, but the consequences that we're willing to accept. So there's no solution, but there are consequences. Are those the consequences that we're willing to take on board? And then there's community, which is a really interesting term. This is from the Scottish government. This term, community, means a place where people live which can be clearly defined, such as the boundaries of a specific town or village or a specific postcode. Community groups must draw their membership from a community defined in this way. So to some extent, the Scottish government is saying, if you want to be part of our community energy scheme, you've got to know what your boundary is, whether that's a postcode, whether that's your shoreline, whether that's your street. It's pretty defined. It's got to be defined in that particular way, which I would personally say is probably closer to a definition of a neighborhood, because it's not because I've got lots of people in my community and they don't share my values. This is a community, but we don't share a postcode, but we do share a set of values. So those definitions, which we have to work with, I think they're up for debate. But given that, let's look at some of the things that SEDA Solar does. So these are from Colin Porteous, who Janice has already mentioned. A wealth of knowledge and resource that I've come across, and a fantastic gentleman. I could not start to explain what these are, but they're really cool buildings that Colin has assured me are about passive solar, about looking at solar in a different way through architecture. I know the one on the right is Cove Arc, which is a system, a big, cool architectural system where you've got a tank in the bottom and you've got passive solar and you've got solar panels and it's really cool. And when Colin describes it, it's like, wow, I'm in awe of how these things are really, really amazing. And then we've got a clicker that, oh, there we go. And then we've got on the left, yeah, the left, a place in the Netherlands in Haarlem, a seniors community hall, which is using passive solar again to create spaces with warm air circulated through the sunlight. Janice has mentioned the Miru project in CEC in East Hall. Colin's given me a great photograph of here, again, of the passive solar. He made an interesting point to say it did work, but it was really dependent on how people used the building and what they were doing to make that work, which is an interesting aside. I'll come back to that in a minute. House in Austria using various kinds of solar thermal and solar capture units, very interesting technology. A place in Ayrshire where very simple, an enclosed balcony, which uses the passive sun, the heat, the infrared to heat the solar to make a buffer, create warmth. These are all really cool things. But when I look at them in my kind of design training, and that might not be everybody else's design training. So when I look at these pictures, and these pictures are really important, I notice some things. And I go back to the two definitions that I put up, and I say, well, design is what I'm doing, not what I've done. I'm only seeing pictures of what I've done. So I'm missing something. I'm missing what actions and decisions were taken in these pictures. They're great pictures. They're beautiful things, but I don't see the design anymore. I also don't see a place. I see a building. That is a kind of place, but I miss in terms of the bigger place. I don't see the postcode, unless the building has its own postcode. I see a clear definition and I see a boundary, but perhaps not the way that I want to see that. So when I look at this building, I notice a couple things, and I notice the outcome, but I don't know how that outcome has come about. I think we can extrapolate, but to some extent, the architect's not here to tell me that story anymore. And that for me is really important. I want to hear the story of that outcome. I don't see any people, which I find really, I don't see the community anymore. Architects have started in renderings to put people in, and they're usually from Google, walking some other place, and then they've displaced them to go, look, there's people. And it's like, the shadows are wrong. Those people, what is wrong with real people? So I don't see the people and I don't see the community. I see a technical system, but I don't see much else. I see the way that the building operates. I see the envelope. I see the solar panels. I see the heating and the ventilation, but I don't see the cooking. I don't see the sleeping. I don't see the whatever it is that other people do in terms of a social system. I don't see the clearly defined place out with the dwelling. So I don't know where it is. There are pictures, of course, you can go online, you can see Cove Arc in that space, in its context. But usually to get the building, you kind of miss the context. You have to zoom out really far and then you miss the building. But what I see also comes back to, I see demarcations. I do see boundaries. I see walls. I see doors. I see windows. I see a separation of inside and I see a separation of outside. So when I'm in that building, I'm not outside that building. I have yet to figure out how I can be in two places at once. If anybody in the room knows how to do that, I would really love to chat to you. But I can't be in and out at the same time. And to some extent, when I'm not in that house, like all of us right now are not in our homes because we're here. So what's going on in our homes? What's going on between our homes? These are the kinds of questions that are really important to me as a designer. I look at these images and I think, wow, there's Creel. This is from the Community Energy Scotland website. That is a defined place. And that's a funding space that has gotten money for their community energy scheme. And I think this is oh, look, there's a whole series of solar panels right in the back. And there's a coastline. And I'm going to assume that there's a coastline around the back. So it fits the notion of a community. It qualifies for the scheme to say it can have community energy. But there's other things that I noticed in that picture, like how much the ratio between land and building exists. There's a lot of space there. There's a lot of sky. That looks really lovely. But then I go to my street and I go, whoa, that's a postcode. But how am I going to do that? I don't qualify for a community energy scheme because in some sense, I can't get all the people on that street to agree. I mean, I have a leak in my flat. I can't find the leak. I'm pretty sure water still runs down. And given I'm on the ground floor, I can narrow down quite quickly that it's either one of the three flats above me, but they all deny any wrongdoing. It's like, but I'm sorry, physics, the water comes from somewhere and I don't have my water pipes above my house. They're below. I know where mine are. So how are we going to do a community energy scheme if that community doesn't fit the definition of the Scottish government? To some extent, the community as a thing is fixed. My interest is, if this is about design, where's the process of communitying? How do communities come about? So one of the things that for me are really interesting in these pictures, and the reason I use these images, this is from a company called EcoFlow, a very large, very progressive Chinese company building home power systems, basically like really large battery packs and solar panels and charge converters. They've started in 2018. They are a massive force. So within 6 years, this domestic market for going off grid and independent energy has completely exploded. What's interesting here is not so much that this kit which is not much more than any other kit that you've been able to get for the past 30 years. Solar panels, a couple wires, charge controller, an inverter, blah, blah, blah. It's the way it's packaged, but then it's the way it's sold. So, I mean, look at that lovely house in California with these fantastic solar panels and those 4 eco units. I don't live in that house. And what I do notice is how much green is outside, how much land this person has. That carport is bigger than the front end of my own apartment. That is a massive flat. But the other part of their advertising, probably closer to me on the right here, bearded man, living in his camper van. But what he's got there is he's got a charge controller and he's got an air conditioner, which runs off the charge controller. Now, he looks like he's having lots of fun eating his toast with an air conditioner in a camper van in the middle of the mountains. And I think, is this what I'm being told I'm supposed to do? Right? So these imaginaries, this advertising is a way of communicating. Socio-technical imaginaries are a science and technologies or a sociological term introduced by Jasanoff and Kim in 2009 to kind of explore the relationship between the politics of a state or politics of a community and the way that technology reinforces those politics. To some extent, we define socio-technical imaginaries as collectively imagined forms of social life and social order. 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go double time. So technology has an impact on the way that we order our social life. Our social life has an impact on the kinds of technologies that we want. These two systems come together and it's really hard to take them apart. But they're there. They can be identified. And to some extent, the technology is a way of what is the future we want? So getting back to the fact that I'm an idiot, I think if this is what I'm supposed to do, that's what I'm going to do. So just to go back to a very quick quote from Tolstoy, everybody in the world wants to change humanity, but nobody wants to change themselves. So I'm going to do it the inverse. I'm going to change myself. So this is where's the clicker? This is my office. My office is off the grid. My office is powered by everything that I can do. So I've got an EcoFlow unit sitting right there, like the guy in the van. That's my laptop, my monitor. My power supplies are over there. There's a wind turbine. I generate my own electricity. I can't do the heat because actually I can't get off of the infrastructure. I can't get out of the system, but I do what I can. And I'm like, I'm going to do it all by myself. But to charge that, you can see this is my window, which I'm on the north side of a building facing west, looking at another building. The amount of sun I actually get in my office is probably about 30 seconds at 7 p.m. in the evening. It's just abysmal. So how do I do this? I'm not allowed to go on the roof, health and safety. I'm not allowed to integrate with the interface or the envelope of the building. I'm not allowed to do anything. So to charge that, I've built a portable power station that's twice as large, sits in a bike trailer, and I go and find the sun. So half of my day is spent sitting outside, charging up another battery bank that I've built to charge the battery bank in my office. Now, all of this is monitored, data collected. How much energy do I need? 60 kilowatts, as Sue said, every kilowatt counts, is 60 kilowatt hours is what I'm doing, paring it back. So I need to make 60 kilowatts. That's really tough. It's not as easy as it looks because you need a lot more than a little solar panel. You need quite a big array to actually make that amount. But so I've gone and built other things because a bike trailer is really difficult. Yeah, I'm not listening. Okay, so I build all kinds of things. This is me making my lunch, sitting outside. There's my solar panel. This is my battery pack. This is me heating my soup. This is absurd because it takes me 45 minutes to heat a can of soup. And people sit outside and go, what are you doing? There's a microwave inside. And it's like, I know, but the microwave requires somebody to build the microwave, somebody to build all the steel that builds the microwave, somebody to build a boat to put it from the factory to ship it to me. And then they need to build a kitchen and they need to build it. I mean, this is just a suitcase with a battery in it. I mean, 45 minutes seems to be a real interesting compromise for, challenging the whole socioeconomic system. And just, if it does collapse, I can still heat my soup. I don't have to worry about factories in China. I just have to figure out how to make my own batteries. This has led to working with artists who want to do outdoor installations. This is me building a power supply for Julien Dupuis, who makes this interactive pump, thinking that I can fully meet his energy requirements. But what he doesn't know that the conscious part of my research is, no, I can't meet your energy requirements because I'm going to challenge you about what your energy requirements are. By not giving you enough, I'm going to make you live within your limitations. So I build all these kinds of things, which is good fun. This has led to working with Fife College, and we're building what I suppose is one giant trailer on the Fife campus. We're going to take half of their campus off-grid, and we're building a self-sufficient nanogrid system. And we're doing it in 3 phases. So to start, it'll be solar because it's really accessible. We'll be adding wind. We'll be doing hydrogen. We'll be doing heat pumps. We'll be doing all sorts of energy. But the question is, why do this? Because we can do it. It's not hard to do. But what's the point? And this comes back to this notion of community, is that there's a boundary there, but we want to expand that boundary. And part of it is, this is a space not only to learn about the skills that are required to build energy systems. This guy doesn't have any skill from what I can tell. He just went to the store and bought all this stuff, and he gets to sit there with his toast. That, on the other side, requires a bit of skill. So the nanogrid is about, how do we build the skills required for this transition? Because in Scotland alone, we need an awful lot of people. We need 3,000 welders. So the point here is, where's the design? The design is in the process of questioning why we accept the system as it is. It's building evidence to say, maybe we need to think different. Everybody wants to think different, but then everybody thinks the same because nobody wants to be perceived as being an idiot. Maybe what we need to do is reimagine, not look at the imaginaries and get told what we're supposed to do, but actually challenge what it is we're supposed to do by doing it in a different way and seeing what works. Maybe we need to have a makeup-free day. Yeah, just anybody willing to do that with me? Let's just take off all our makeup and take off and just actually live without cosmetics and fragrances just for a day. Most people will go, yeah, no, I don't want to go out in public looking like that. Actually, you have the choice. We can make the change, but it requires courage to go outside of the system that you're encapsulated in. This is a solar farm from the University of Edinburgh. And when I look at that picture, I think, that's great. Look at all that green space that just got tied up making solar panels so the university could make an extra 1.5 megawatts of electricity to maintain our energy consumption habits. I look at that in Creel, and I go, that's great, but that's an island. I'm sure that if that space starts to fill up, that community is going to go, ho, ho, immigration problem. We can't have all these people from Glasgow and Edinburgh suddenly coming up to Creel and taking our space. We have to break these systems apart. My work is about complexity within systems. So it's looking at that nanogrid and saying, it's not just about the technology, it's also about the skills required to do that technology. But we don't have them. We need 3,000 welders in the next 3 years to build wind turbines to meet our energy requirements. We have no idea where those 3,000 welders are going to come from, in part because we've got an education system that's on its knees because of its financial problems. So we can't even train them. We're struggling to get an inward investment into this country to say, but if we had a company that could bid it in. So we're caught between systems. We need to reimagine how that gets done. Welding can be a sexy profession. I think it would be real. If I had to go back, I'd be a welder. The other problem is that we got people in large cities. So while we're looking at community energy schemes in places like Egg, Noidart, Creel, these are fantastic examples. But does the knowledge translate to the fact that actually most people are living in urban environments and they are continuing to live in urban environments? Now we can go back to the rural environment, but then where are the jobs that support people to live in the rural environment? If everybody in the urban environment suddenly reversed and it was 70% people living in rural Scotland, we would have, again, different kinds of problems. I don't think these are problems in as much as we just need to be aware. We need to be conscious about, as designers, when we are proposing changes, that we have ripple effects. And we have to ask ourselves, are these the consequences that I'm willing to accept? To some extent, it's about taking care, which is a word that hasn't been really used today. As a framework, I've been starting to work with people on retrofit, and the way that we collectivize, the way that we build communities is a form of care, because we come together around a shared set of purposes and a shared value. We care about the planet and we care for the planet. We try to give care to the planet, and we try to, because we want to receive, we want the planet to care for us. we're not really good at receiving. Oh, we're not good at giving care. Oh, I know. Okay. We need to take care, and I need to realize that my time is up. So I'm going to go, and that's my last slide. Thank you very much.